2, 1. Okay. After a little interruption, we are recording again. Sorry for the interruption. And Carol, you've got something to say?
Well, Melissa, did you want to chime in, or she left?
Well, I'd love for you to repeat what you shared, and then I can chime in after if that works for you.
Okay. I'm actually also in the middle of trying to get a different connection. I'm going to see if I can get on my laptop as opposed to my phone. What I said is basically, I feel like everything that Shaman said, I totally agree with, and I'm totally right there. I also kind of feel like I'm in a place in my career where my belief is that the solutions that we're looking at are already there. All of the solutions that we need to solve this problem have already been designed and developed, and even more so, like daily, I feel like there are new things coming online, people in Africa now, there's like one guy who created this solar oven that is better than any other solar oven that's ever been designed, and so there's little stuff like that that's also happening, but I feel like the solution's already there. And I think for me, the challenge is not necessarily that we need to find more solutions or figure out what the solutions are. My challenge is really where I feel like people who have the power and policymakers who are scared because the people who have the power are controlling them, that's really like what is stagnating a lot of everything. And one of the reasons why I think this is such an amazing idea is because when I think about what really needs to change in the future, I think about collectivism, I think about shared everything, and models of sharedness of all different types, like co-ops and, businesses and housing, and I mean, it goes on, right? And alternatives to the current systemic model that we have right now, which I feel like our government is seriously trying to shut down any alternatives to anything, and that there's only one route to get to anywhere. And if the power shifts in terms of giving voice to the powerless, which are the people who are most affected by what's happening with climate change, I feel like that's what's going to shift everything. I feel like, the more people that really understand that there are already solutions that they can actually take hold of and implement certain things in their life right now, today, in this moment, I think that that's like would be a huge shift. And as a visual artist, I guess I didn't say this part earlier, but as a visual artist, I also feel like my challenge in my field is that when I'm like the last exhibit that I did that was about race and climate justice, a lot of the feedback that I got from people who attended the exhibition was like, wow, I had to come back because the information was so deep. Like it was like going to a museum, right? Like I had to come back a couple times to really regurgitate what it was that I was experiencing and all the information that I was getting. And so I think there's also this thing where people are feeling overwhelmed. And so they just shut off, and they don't want to face that, dude, it may look like things are okay right now, but things are not okay, So I think that's my challenge, is like, how do you get people to wake the fuck up? I don't know. That's my challenge. And it's very frustrating.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about, creating as artists installations and pieces that are awakeners, but that also, I mean, this is my personal inspiration that don't put people into fear mode and therefore shut down mode. So it's a thing of know what the facts are, you know, and know what steps you can take to be part of the change rather than part of the harm. And also to inspire people with beauty, because beauty is truth, truth is beauty, right? As Edgar Allan Poe said. So we have to, I see it as a bringing people back into connection with the source. So that's nature, that's with the divine, the sacred, with community. And I feel that that's very much a role that I embrace and embody with my work. And I believe you do as well, Carol. And I think that's our job. I think what's great about the work Nolan and Jamin are doing is it's creating this platform where people can connect rather than us being isolated pods. So I see the art as the awakener. It's also, I don't want to use the word hope, but I'm going to use the word inspiration. It can bring inspiration. It can bring people together. And the platform is also a way to bring people together in conversation so we don't feel isolated and we can be, again, part of the solution. And by solution, that also has an S at the end because, of course, we have many, many issues we got to look at, address, and solve, or resolve, put it that way. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I agree.
Beautiful, beautiful. You know, one point I want to make is, so just listening to what you were saying, Carol, number one, we have solutions. We have so many great solutions that are out there. So it's not like we need to invent more solutions, right? And then I heard you say that the people in power, the policymakers, they are stagnating everything. They're keeping things kind of in the status quo. Even though we have all these great solutions that we could be implementing, they are preventing us from implementing those. So let me suggest to you, this is a really important point, that problem or that set of problems of people in power and policymakers keeping things stagnant and not letting us implement the solutions that would really transform things, that problem of the people in power and the stagnation, just imagine that problem has a solution. And imagine that solution has yet to be developed, right? So I'm not saying that we don't have great solar ovens. We do. But we need to find so that's not the solution we need to find. We need to find the solution to what you just named, that the people who are in power controlling the world's resources are not willing to change radically, right? And embrace these other new solutions that, like you say, already exist. So the solutions that we need to find going forward are not necessarily engineering solutions. They are political solutions, social solutions, media solutions to get the word out, to make this a big story that, hey, the solutions are at hand and humanity is finally coming together to put them all together and to build whatever missing solutions there are, like these missing political, social, cultural, media, social media, etc. So the art solutions, it's, for example, that'll wake people up and help them see, right? So that it's really in that broader sense of solutions that I'm talking about the missing solutions. Because if we had every last solution that we needed, including the solutions to transforming politics and power and control of resources, then we'd be just totally on our way. We'd be cruising instead of being stagnant right now.
I'd also like to add something to that, Jamin, if this is a moment to interject. So what seems to be happening is that people have denied and denied and denied, and then we'll get a heat wave and bushfires in Australia, which take out, I don't know how many billions of species, and there's people's water is polluted and the sky is orange and there's ash everywhere. So they can't deny it any longer. It's like whether you're rich or poor, male, female, young, old, it doesn't matter. It's there. You see it. Loss. My friend Sand, who wrote to me, who lives in Australia, about 250 kilometers away from the bushfires. She is an architect, and when she came to visit me here, and I showed her my work on environmental justice, and you know, she liked it, but she wasn't really engaged in it, you know. Now she's had a real experience about climate change, and she sent me a message saying, Mel, now I get your work. She goes, we've lost 2 billion species. My water, I can't drink it. I'm pulling the nets off my berry bushes so the birds that did survive can have food. She goes, keep doing your work. So unfortunately, but here we are, humans need to go through loss to have a spiritual transformation and get it. So what I'm getting from this is those of us who are already, if I could say awake or at just a different place in our awareness, we have to keep moving forward. We can't wait for anybody who can't get it right now. So we can start building solutions. We can have these conversations so that when things start flooding and burning up and collapsing and no more food and no more water, there are systems that are already being implemented and put into action or order that people can then become part of, plug into. Valencia in Spain, the east coast of Spain is underwater. They haven't ever had that experience before. So now all those people who did not talk about climate change before, they're having a real experience. And I'm sure there are going to be more and more people ripe to join in, or who want to promote or help create a consensus around platforms like what you're doing, Jamin and Nolan, or you know, any of the work we're doing. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think that the worse it gets, the more people are going to get on board. It's just sad that that's what it has to come to, you know? But I mean, that is the reality of human nature, right? And I feel like I wish there was more dialogue and more conversation in mainstream about like the refugee crisis and mass immigration, mass populations of people that are being transplanted and displaced all over the country, or not country, but world, you know, and that's related to climate change. All of it is related. And that for me is also slightly frustrating, is that I can see all these connections, but it's not talked about like that. You know, like on the weather forecast, we hear a glip about this, we hear a glip about that, we hear a glip about this, and then we hear politics, and there's a glip about, you know, the Syrian crisis and but it's all connected. And that's like the part that is so frustrating. But I'm right there with you, Melissa. I feel like in my work, that is my job, is to show the connections and to show like the reality. And I'm really working on trying not to do that in a way that is devastating or leaves people in a sad place without solutions, you know? But that's also a challenge as well, right? Like, how do you present this information to people when it is very stark? And I deeply believe that we've already moved past the tipping point. I deeply believe that, yes, the solutions are out there and we need to gravitate towards them and start implementing them. But I also deeply believe that the system that we currently live in and are experiencing is on the decline. And with that decline, it's going to become more and more clear. And people already in the United States are already witnessing this, that our systems, none of our systems work. Our education, our prison system, our justice system, our medical system, none of our systems work. And they're all built on this capitalist system of consuming, which is fucking the planet. So for me, I kind of feel like it's at times I don't really care if people are left hurting. I guess that's not a really good thing, but I don't want to be that artist either, right? Like I want to present solutions, which is one reason I'm also on this call. So I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. That's really well put, and I feel the same way. It's like sometimes I think humans just need to be removed altogether, but that's, you know, we are also part of the creation, so we're supposed to be here. So here's a thought, you guys. I don't know, it's just coming to me listening to you, Carol. What if, and I'm wondering, like, could we do a collaboration, like a installation, and have part of it being in conversation? So Jamin, Nolan, Evan, you, myself, whomever we want to invite. Part of the exhibition is actually an actual conversation in Seattle where people come and can hear us talking about these big issues and exactly what we're talking about now and other things, and have them become part of the conversation and then stream it live. Get it on Facebook, get it at Artist Trust. I don't know. Just, you know, that's kind of what's coming to me. Like that, we have these skill sets. These are our tools, right, to use. And we've got to come together and use them. Great to be online like this, but I think we need to do some actual events. Yeah, over and out.
Beautiful. Well, that's actually a great segue into the topic of the block party, because the block party is not just one event. It's a whole bunch of events, all under the banner of the collective intelligence block party is the main theme. And the big idea is that we create a 24-hour period every week that starts at 6 a.m. on Friday morning, Pacific time, and goes to 6 a.m. Saturday morning, Pacific time. So that, and being a 24-hour period, no matter where you are in the world, it might start at 11 p.m. for you if you're way over in East Asia, right? Or it may start at 3 in the afternoon for you if you're in Europe. But wherever you are in the world, that whole 24-hour period sweeps the whole clock. So there will be a 7 p.m. if that's the best time for you. There will be a 10 p.m. There will be a 10 a.m. You name the time around the clock. We cover all 24 hours, all around the world. And it's all happening at the same time. And so the idea is that by creating this weekly 24-hour period and framing it as a block party, which basically says, come as you are, you know, this isn't some stuffy conference where, you know, we only speak in a certain way and interact in a certain way. This is humanity coming together to figure out everything we need to figure out, including all the missing solutions, and including bringing to light all the existing solutions that have gotten buried, right? And fundamentally, It's about humanity coming together and sharing a space and sharing time and sharing conversations that move us in the direction of this million-lane superhighway, which we will get to. The only question is, will we get there in time? In time to actually cool the planet and slam the brakes on this death spiral that we're in right now. And I believe that it is inevitable that we will get there. The only question is whether we'll get there in time. Why do I think it's inevitable that we get there? Because as things continue to fall apart, Evan, welcome. Let's welcome Evan. Let's give Evan a big hug. Here, come to the camera so people can hug you on camera. Okay. Say welcome, Evan. Welcome, Evan. Great to see you, bro. Awesome. Okay. So, see, this is what I'm talking about. People coming together.
And by the way, Carol, Evan is Nolan's younger brother. Another brilliant superstar. Woo, 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 woo. Hi, Evan.
Hi, Melissa. Hi, Carol.
And we also got Uncle Frank.
Uncle Frank, hello.
He's popping in and out. Evan, we're talking about the block party. Have we've talked about the block party. Okay, we're talking about doing it as a 24-hour period, starting at 6 a.m. Thursday morning, going until 6 a.m. Friday morning, every single week of the year. Because what that is that's us urinating out on a patch of time every week and saying this, during this 24-hour period, we are live with the block party. And we might start with one conversation like this one. And then over time it grows to 10, and then 100, and then 1,000. And we will get to 1,000,000 if we stick to it and let the word spread and spread the word ourselves and say, hey, this is humanity coming together in conversation and manifesting in an incremental, organic way, manifesting radical collective intelligence en route to having 1,000,000 conversations happening in parallel. By the time we cross that million conversation mark, and we have a whole extensive platform where you can go to a web page and see the whole calendar and search and be able to find conversations that are happening in real time right now about the things you want to talk about. If you want to talk about solar ovens, there are conversations happening about solar ovens. If you want to talk local grassroots political transformation, there are conversations happening about local grassroots political transformation. Happening in Oakland, California, in Seattle, Washington, Tokyo, Japan, Moscow, Amsterdam, you name it, happening all around the world. Okay? And you'll be able to plug in and find those conversations and those groups, whether they're local.
It looks like Carol has a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
I have a question. So with the block party, are you thinking like it happens once a month, or is it just once a year or quarterly, or when exactly and for how long, you know? Because you're saying every week. So I'm just kind of curious, like what the...
Yeah. So the answer to your first question is once a week. Like literally every single week on the calendar. I don't care whether it's Christmas week, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, end of February, leap year, you name it.
So like for a year, you mean?
No, indefinitely, ongoingly. And,
okay.
And then it would actually grow from there. So for example, if our block party goes from 6:30 a.m. Friday to 6 a.m. Friday to 6 a.m. Saturday, that 24-hour period. Now imagine the 24-hour period that precedes that, from 6 a.m. Thursday to 6 a.m. Friday. Imagine we call that 24-hour period the tailgate party. And then take the 24-hour period after the block party, going from 6 a.m. Saturday to 6 a.m. Sunday, and imagine we call that the after party. So now we'll extend it to 72 hours of straight block party. Conversations, millions of conversations, people coming together, figuring stuff out. Whether it's solar ovens, whether it's political transformation, whether it's cooling the planet through solar radiation, whatever aspect, facet it is. Whether it's, hey, we need communal housing here in Oakland, all right? The rent is too high. People are getting forced out, squeezed out. What do we do about this? Well, there are conversations happening about communal housing and all facets of it, right? The zoning for it, the finance of it, the construction, the culture of it, the community grassroots organizations that are making it happen, how to organize, right? See, with the block party, all these conversations will be happening in parallel, and all the individual has to do is find their niche, find their sweet spot. And the cool thing is, their niche may change over time, right? Like me, for example, I'm really good at like starting stuff. I'm really good at starting it, right? I'm not so good at managing stuff once it's started, right? So here's a perfect case in point. So I am involved in this awesome vegan community called Vegan World 2026. And so I went to their conference in October in Arizona, and I said, hey, this is so cool what you all are doing, but what we need, what's missing, is a collective intelligence. Can we start a collective intelligence for veganism? And the answer was yes. Go ahead, Jamin. So I started it, and it was a bumpy ride, and it was a little messy, right? But we got it started. And now there are 3 other people who have taken over the management of the Vegan Collective Intelligence. So I did my job, got it started, and I'm still in it, but I'm no longer a leader of it because that's not my sweet spot. So imagine that I go around from meeting to meeting and I'm like, all right, where is it stuck so that we can start this thing, right? Because I'm really good at that, right? And then, and there may be certain meetings that invite Jamin Shively to join in to help them get whatever started that they want to get started, right? And maybe there are other meetings where they're kind of repelled by this Jamin Shively dude with a long mullet, and he seems to talk a lot and kind of opinionated. No, let's, hey, that's fine. Don't invite me if you don't want me. But what I'm suggesting is, more generally, each of us has our own unique special talents and gifts. There might be a group that has a great idea, Melissa and Carol, and they need some artists to help them get it communicated, right? And spread throughout the community. That's where you ladies come in. So the big idea is that there are certain combinations of people that when we come together, we can accomplish amazing things. But we have to be together to do it. We can't just do it just sitting on our own in our little cubicle typing. We actually have to be in community, in group, like what we're doing right now, right? Here we are communicating to the world through recording our ideas about how to change the world through radical collective intelligence and this never-ending series of block parties. See, we start with 24 hours each week, right? And everybody knows it's on. During those 24 hours, it's on. Go to radish.org, and there's a link that you can click, and bam, you're in a big Zoom meeting with Jamin Shively and company, talking about radical collective intelligence and how do we expand the block party. Now, Also on the homepage of Radish, where we'll put all the information about the block party, let's say there's 5 different conversations happening on a given Friday, right? And you can see what all 5 are about, who's leading the conversations, what they're talking about, and you can click whichever one you want to go to. There will be a general session, like I'm going to be heading up the general session block party meeting, right? So if you just want to show up and talk about whatever, and talk about the general concept like we've been doing today, that's where you show up. If there's one that's a meeting that's all about having local events, actual physical events, and getting those set up for the block party, go to that one, right? There might be a meeting about ending hunger and creating community cafes for the block parties, right? Go to that one if you want, right? But there will be all kinds of different meetings en route to getting to 1 million, right? Eventually we're going to cross the 1 million threshold, and we're going to have a big party that week when we cross 1 million, right? Maybe we'll like blow up that big ball in New York City or something. Like literally just blow the thing up. I'm just kidding. To commemorate, Better be careful what I say. Just kidding, NSA. Okay. Anyway. But you see where this is going. We're starting totally ragtag. We're just doing it. Simple. I mean, it's literally going to start with a Zoom meeting like this. And people will just click on the link and they show up, and it's like, hey, I heard you guys are having a block party. I heard a little bit about it. Fill me in, and maybe at the top of every hour, we'll take 15 minutes and just give a general introduction to all the newcomers and let them ask questions. The first few block parties, it's going to be about us just getting together and getting to know each other and getting comfortable with this new medium where we're recording and broadcasting and transcribing, right? With a view to what? With a view to connecting with all of humanity, getting all of humanity to come together. Not just in a single conversation, but in 1 million conversations, ultimately. But we'll start with 1, and then 2 and 3 and 4. This is how it goes. Again, the general principle, let's review the general principle. Consider that the greatest threat to life on earth is the belief that someone else will fix it. The block party is going to be mostly comprised of the people who have the exact opposite view. That we, literally me, you Carol, you Melissa, you Evan, you Nolan, we are the ones who must fix this. We and everyone else who joins us. And the block party is the place to start. We start with a block party, a weekly block party. Then we expand it out to the tailgate party and the after party. So it goes from 24 hours a week to 72 hours per week. And then the rest of the week, which will be a 96-hour 4-day stretch, right? We'll simply call that one midweek. So from 6 a.m. Sunday to 6 a.m. Thursday, we call that midweek. And you can also schedule meetings during midweek. But where this is all going is that whether it's a 24-hour period or the whole week, there will be a public calendar exposing all the meetings that are scheduled during the whole week, and which ones are totally open to the public and which ones are invite only, right? There might be an invite only conversation where there's 2 people who are having a debate on a certain topic, and you might have 100,000 people watching, right? But only 2 people talking. So people can organize meetings of whatever nature they want. And the general idea is that the more of these meetings that are broadcast and the more open these meetings are to participation from anyone who wants to participate, the more we'll get this kind of dynamic, fluid, rapid switching from one lane to another on the million-lane highway, right? We basically need to get all of humanity who believes that they are part of the solution. We need to get them all on the same freeway, the same highway, changing lanes, mixing it up, meeting people from other groups. Some people will be like social bumblebees, bouncing from meeting to meeting, saying, hey, over there, they're talking about this, and it's really cool, and here's the gist of it, and I'm about to jump back in, but I first wanted to connect with you all, because you're working on something related, and maybe we can find a way to knit together our different efforts. Why not, right? We boys, we know all about crossing streams. We'll literally have facilities so that, like, with a click of a button, you can merge two meetings together. So there's 5 people. There's literally 5 people right here. Another 5 people are talking about something similar. We merge the two together, and now you have 10 people in one room.
I also like the idea of 5 people being in a video conferencing room and then being able to split off too.
Yeah.
Because I think that really, that's why the party metaphor works so well, is because at a party we're mixing and mingling, the groups are growing and then shrinking and dissipating.
Yeah.
And I think this is just a technological version of that.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And we can do that with Zoom as it is right now. So we can start these big events with a kind of general meeting and then fractal off from there into whatever topics we want. And I think it's easy to, I think the current Zoom functionality means you have to be, the host can assign co-hosts, and then the host and the co-hosts can move people around different rooms, but people can't decide to go on their own. That's the current state of the technology.
Yeah. So you see, part of our challenge here, and this is something that will get handled over the course of the block parties as we have more and more of them and as more and more people show up, is there will be certain conversations within the million conversations that will be about the platform itself and how do we facilitate, meetings bifurcating and saying, well, half of us want to talk about this and half of us want to talk about that. So let's, essentially put like a divider in the room and create 2 rooms, whereas before there was 1. Everyone who wants to go to room A, click on the link A. Everyone who wants to go to room B, click on link B. This meeting is now adjourned. Bam! There's the gavel, and there's just 2 links, right? So we're going to be able to create these functionality. Also with crossing streams, we're going to be able to find a way to merge meetings, right, at the click of a button. This is easy technologically. We've had the technology for this for over 10 years. We just haven't put it together yet. Well, literally. I mean, there's been essentially 0 new technological development in the last decade. That's how stagnant we've become, right? Twitter, Facebook, Google Docs, all this stuff. This was all developed over 10 years ago. In the last 10 years, we've become totally stagnant. Why? Because we're all reading text and sending emails. We've become brain damaged, right? The way we communicate as humans is what we're doing right here, right now in this room. There's 5 of us here out of 7.5 billion people. There's less than 1 in a billion of us here in this room right now. And we're talking. We're having an actual conversation. And we can see each other's faces and see each other's reactions. Okay? This is important. This is how this species, like Melissa and I feed the crows every day. And so we observe the crows and we see how they squawk and talk and hop around and do their thing. We're a species. And this is how we walk and talk and hop around and do our thing. We look at each other, we make faces, we raise our eyebrows, we fan out our nostrils. Check this out. Okay, we you know, this is how we communicate, face to face in real time. You know, look, if it were back in the caveman days and some caveman were just like trying to scratch something into a rock and pass it under a door to some other caveman, they'd say, you're stupid, just talk to the dude, right? Well, guess what? We now have the technology to stop being stupid and actually talk to the dude or dudette, as the case may be, right? Like I can look at Carol right now and I can tell she's cracking up, and that's a good sign. That means the divine feminine is in the house and the divine feminine likes what this divine masculine is saying, and that's a good thing. See, that motivates us. That keeps us going. That lets us know we're on track, right? It's how we work. You know, again, crows work one way, humans work another.
Can I interject, Jamin?
Oh, no, I'm on a roll. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to also, just as we all know, but just to drop this in on our plate right now, is that we are changing. The way we are thinking and being is actually changing. And what I find fascinating and of interest to explore is, well, what shape is that going to take and what does that look like? So Carol talked about all the institutions falling apart and all the things that, all the ways we've always done things for the last at least 300 years or maybe 3,000 years is just not functioning any longer. And so this collective coming together, even though it's not a new concept, it is new for us to come together in this way globally. You know, when you think of all these different things like diversity now, racial diversity, age, all different ages coming together, the blending of the sexes, etc. So I think that is something also to keep in mind. It's not just, and I know, Jamie, you're not saying this, but we're not supposed to be in the same mindset any longer that created the problems. So what is our new mindset and where are we going in order to find solutions? And if I may, I would like to read something from The Sacred Tree. I don't know if you guys know this book. Jane Goodall wrote an introduction, and it's Native American wisdom. It's very short. Are you guys okay if I read something from this? Because it's a story that is about the time we're living in now, and it's been prophesized, and I think it's interesting to remember that as well, that there is a bigger something happening besides just humans that is at play here, that is influencing everything that's happening on this planet. So this is called The Story of the Sacred Tree. For all the people of the earth, the Creator has planted a sacred tree under which they may gather and there find healing, power, wisdom, and security. The roots of this tree spread deep into the body of Mother Earth. Its branches reach upward like hands praying to Father Sky. The fruits of this tree are the good things the Creator has given to the people, teachings that show the path to love, compassion, generosity, patience, wisdom, justice, courage, respect, humility, and many other wonderful gifts. The ancient ones taught us that the tree of life is the life of the people. If the people wander far away from the protective shadow of the tree, if they forget to seek the nourishment of its fruit, or if they should turn against the tree and attempt to destroy it, great sorrow will fall upon the people. Many will become sick at heart. The people will lose their power. They will cease to dream dreams and see visions. They will begin to quarrel among themselves over worthless trifles. They will become unable to tell the truth and to deal with each other honestly. Sound familiar, you guys? They will forget how to survive in their own land. Their lives will become filled with anger and gloom. Little by little, they will poison themselves and all they touch. It was foretold that these things would come to pass, but that the tree would never die. And as long as the tree lives, the people live. It was also foretold that the day would come when the people would awaken as if from a long, drugged sleep, that they would begin timidly at first, but then with great urgency to search again for the sacred tree.
That was beautiful, because you know I'm a tree person. Me and my tree of life. I think what's so interesting about what you just read is that metaphorically, and also realistically, like tangibly, logically, all of that is so true. And there's one thing that I was watching this documentary, I think it was last week or a week and a half ago or something, and it was about the creation of civilization and how when a particular country rises to the height of their wealth potential, and wealth potential can mean a lot of different things, but like the thing that I'm specifically thinking about in direct correlation to the documentary, they were speaking specifically about the Romans and the Greeks and, you know, like these, and also Egyptians, you know, these mass civilizations. And one of the things that they said was that when a civilization starts to crumble is when it reaches its maximum wealth potential. And our maximum wealth potential, I believe, actually probably has already happened. And it probably happens like between 1950 and like 2007, before our economy fucking tanked. And we are actually on a decline. Our civilization, the United States as we currently know it, is on the decline. And that is information that mainstream is not necessarily thinking about, or even has considered, or is aware of, or is even, we haven't even taught our kids this information, you know, like we haven't even passed on, how do you feed yourself? How do you educate your own tribe? How do you, you know, birth babies? How do you, all this medicinal. So when the stuff actually hits the fan, we're going to be in way worse and severe condition than we were when the Depression happened. Because at least when the Depression happened, there were midwives, there were people who didn't necessarily have degrees and didn't go to college to be in debt to like learn how to birth people, right? There were people that had educations that were based on actual physical learning, like the trades and vocational stuff. So now the system that we have, I know specifically in Seattle at least, we've eliminated all of our alternative education programs. We've eliminated all of our arts. We've eliminated all of our home ec and shop classes and all the things that people actually need to know how to do to live in a society successfully. And so for me, it's very scary. The other part of it is that I also recognize that digital and internet and all of the high-tech stuff is really necessary and needed right now. But there may come a time, because there's going to be energy shortages, that we're not going to have access to this type of like digital information and framing and all of that stuff. And so my other fear, that is a huge fear in terms of just coming from the background of being African American, and my story and my history is already not written down, when I think about books and the process of writing and the process of capturing history and stories, that's why that book that you just have is so important to me, because it's written down, right? And I know for a fact that writing has been completely eliminated out of education in the Seattle school district. And that's just the start, right? So my daughter doesn't even know how to flip and do cursive, barely writes like regular writing. It's sloppy as heck, right? Because they're teaching them typewriting. Or not typewriting. That's my generation, sorry. They're teaching them like keyboarding, you know? But we're not seeing long-term in terms of what we're actually teaching our kids and what this next generation is actually getting. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff they have access to in Google and on the internet and all this stuff. But there's some stuff that I feel like is better taught one-to-one, is better taught in story, is better taught in connection with people, right? And a lot of the stuff that has been passed down in human history has been passed down verbally. And so I guess, I don't know, I'm not really sure what the point I was trying to make now, but I just, my heart hurts around the direction that we're going. And I've been having conversations with people around, like, Seattle is building, like, we're going through a financial boom, which we are, but it's not realistic, and nobody is considering the fact that these like, I have a building that's being built right now, right outside my window. I'm looking at it and I can see it. Right? It's going to be a 7-story building. They keep building all these buildings, not recognizing that what happens when there's an energy shortage, what happens when you're building these buildings, and just because you're trying to meet gold LEED standard doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be easier on our resources, consuming water, because they're not putting in energy efficient toilets, you know, I don't know. Anyway, so I'm thinking about all this stuff all at one time. And for me, like, I really deeply believe that it has to fall. And I don't know if that's, I don't know. I don't know if that, I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I guess that's basically what I want to say. Sorry. I took up a lot of space.
Right?
No, you're fine. Carol, you talk as much as you want, sister. Seriously. Don't limit yourself.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add, Carol, to what you're saying. I have Native friends whose children are in one of the Indian schools. I don't know if it's Muckleshoot or Puyallup. I can't remember which tribe. But they are teaching the youth and the children how to plant, how to put up food, their traditional songs. They continue the oral tradition of the storytelling and passing down the history through stories orally, how to sew, how to dance, you know, how to cook, all these things you're talking about, which are wholesome, connected to source, create community, and are part of our survival and well-being, and also giving back to Mother Earth. So this thing of thinking 7 generations down the line, which you talk about, is really critical. And we've stopped doing that. We bought into this illusion of the material is everything. And like you said, these great civilizations have come crashing down, and we're in a period of collapse. Absolutely. Which is scary on the one hand, and it's also really exciting on the other, because it brings great potential for change and transformation if we can do it in the right way. Yeah, but I believe in spirit, so we're connected to the spirit, and if we meditate and follow our intuitions, we will be led by spirit. And it's like, you know how the intuition never lies, right? Every time I don't listen to my intuition, I get into trouble. You know, when I heed it, all hunky-dory. It's all good. Over and out.
Well, I just want to say, like, that actually brings me a lot of comfort hearing about the tribes sort of re-educating their young people. And I feel like that's a really interesting sign of just where we're at. And it makes me think of how Graham Hancock talks about he has a theory about a civilization from 12,000 years ago that was wiped out by an ice age, and it was survived only by the native tribal people who remained connected with the land. And I think that this period we're about to go through, it's really important for us to start establishing those roots again to the land, so people know how to grow food. They know how to birth children, which is like something I never even think about. You Carol just brought that up, and I realized like, oh my gosh, yeah, what happens when hospitals don't have power and someone's giving birth and nobody in the family like knows what to do? They're just like, push, I guess. Like, yeah, that's actually terrifying. People need to know how to do that. But I was thinking on the way over here on the boat, just thinking about how the way our culture is kind of set up is like we all don't want to admit that we're gonna die, you know, and we spend our whole lives running away from and not admitting death and trying to live forever through our stuff, through our children, through our jobs, and I think that this next big step for us is not fighting decay or seeing decay as a problem that needs to be solved, but a process that needs to be like worked with. Like we need to become the process of decay in order to have anything, in order for us to survive this and be part of whatever grows out of this next. Like we can't fight the decay. Which kind of reminds me of when in the teachings of the Bardo and how you have these stages of dying. It's when you are fighting the process of death that you get like wrapped back up in this negative cycle or this just a cycle of samsara. And it's like it's the person who can just stay with the process and not indulge fear or hope that is able to make it through to the other side and like retain that stream of consciousness. And so I think we're kind of in this Bardo stage where things totally are decaying and people don't want to admit it. And so I think that's a really powerful thing for us to do, is just admit that things are falling apart. And that in and of itself is not bad. That's the only way anything better can come.
Yeah. And what we're doing here with go ahead. Mm-hmm.
You sure? I was just going to respond to what you just said in terms of death. There's a really good book. It's called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And I think one of the things, when I think about death, I feel like the United States, specifically our culture, really doesn't understand death at all, in a lot of different forms, you know, from not only dying, but how we also discard our bodies, and the fact that what we put in our bodies, and by the time we die, what's in our bodies is in the ground now and polluting the ground. So we're not even thinking about the full cycle of it, period, right? And how you live is how you're going to die. We don't think about this stuff. And for me, I feel like that's one of the places where if we really stop to really understand that death is a process, everybody does it, we all have to go through it, and eventually what comes out the other side is going to be part of what our belief system is, right? And what we carry with us. But that doesn't mean that things end. And for me, there's this other thing that, like, when I think about it's so, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that I'm wishing for a pandemic, but when I hear scientists saying that, like, oh, we want to develop a vaccine, like one vaccine for all of the flu symptoms and all this stuff, so we can save billions and billions of people on this planet. I think to myself, I'm like, you know, there was a natural cycle where people were supposed to die, people died, right? Like, people, before we had scientific technology and all this medicinal, medical, hospital stuff, people died of natural things. People babies were born that weren't supposed to be born, you know? I mean, and I'm not saying that that's like a good thing, but I'm definitely not saying that like it's a bad thing either, right? Like, I just kind of feel like we've strayed so far from what Melissa was just talking about in terms of the tree of life and being connected not only to the land, but to our spirit, to our soul, and to our ancestors, and to our communities. I've been working with this local group around trying to figure out how we can get the city to change the coding around housing development so that people can build tiny houses here. And one of the things that keeps coming up is this concept about, well, you know, if we lived in village with each other, like if the five of us lived in village with each other, that would mean that I could walk to your house when I'm feeling depressed. I could walk to your house when, you know, there's a block party about to happen. I could walk to your house and get some coffee. You could come to my house. You know what I mean? Like, we could spend nights around a bar or a fire pit and tell stories together. And that would be natural. That would be the way of life and that was how people lived. Literal communities lived in villages in community with each other, as opposed to living in apartment buildings that are completely cut people off. They don't know their neighbors. They don't, you know, talk to each other. So I just kind of feel like there's like this whole thing, not only around death, but our entire thinking around what it means to be social and what does it mean to be in communion with other people in community. And we've lost it. And it was one of the things that really struck out to me because I went to Spain last year for 3 months. And one of the things that I loved about Spain is they've lost a lot of stuff. You know, they've lost a lot of stuff financially. The financial boom hit them really bad. But one thing that they have not lost is their social and their commitment to family, right? And what that means is that the 3 different villages that I spent a lot of time in, every single village, the people were directly related to each other. You know, there was one village I was in, it was like 300 people. They were all related to each other. So when people are walking down the street in this one village, hey, how are you? Oh, that's not the mayor. He's my uncle. Oh, that's my grandma. You know, she runs the church. That's my da-da-da-da. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, dude, all these people, your family? He's like, yeah, we're all related. And so it's a completely different feeling. And in America, I like to call our culture transient. And people don't like to hear that they're transient, but that's what we are. We are a community of transient beings building massive buildings and urban environments that are unsustainable. They're not only unsustainable in terms of resource extraction, but they're unsustainable spiritually, emotionally, all these things. I don't know. Yeah. So that's what I had to say to your death thing.
By the way, when we wave our hands in the air, that means we're in agreement. That's like
Silent clapping.
it's silent clapping. Yeah. And there's other hand symbols that they use in the vegan community that we're learning. Like one hand symbol is like this, which means, hey, bring it back to focus. Like it's going too far out. Yeah, bring it back.
This one actually comes from the theater, by the way.
Ah, okay. Very good.
Yes.
You are awesome.
That does not come from the theater. That comes from sign language. That's how deaf people clap.
I guess the theater picked it up though to use it. You know, that's yeah.
Yeah.
Language, yeah.
Anyway, that's cool.
Nice girl. Love what you're saying.
Beautiful. So, you know, the way I see it is that this new virtual block party is a way for humanity to come together and coordinate and organize in the midst of collapse, right? And actually, the internet was designed to be collapse resistant, right? It's this very redundant network that you can take out whole portions of the network here, there, and everywhere. And
Unless you have energy.
right. But you see, one of the interesting things, though. Yeah, no, I agree, and I'd like to add to that, if I may, which is that one of the artifacts of this modern civilization is there's a bunch of solar panels out there now, right?
Yeah.
So even when everything collapses, people will still be generating electricity, right, in certain places. And so, you know, like, and just like in some remote village in India, you've got, 50 people crowded around a single television. You might have 50 people crowded around a single laptop that's connected to the internet, participating in a video conference, right? But, but regardless, we will be communicating with each other. And so, in preparation for the collapse, we humans need to develop this medium of communicating through video conference and through, a million parallel conversations so that we can coordinate on a planetary scale. Because there are certain problems that can be solved on a very local scale. Other problems are planetary. The fact that the planet is overheating is a planetary scale problem that I can't just go out in my backyard and, create some little teepee and solve that problem on my own. Okay, I wish I could, but the reality
is you could.
But, like, we're going to cool the planet in time to prevent the total loss of life on Earth. We're going to need to roll out literally millions of square miles of reflective material, primarily over oceans, to some degree over deserts, but we need literally millions of square miles of basically mirrors reflecting sunlight back into space instead of heating up our planet, as an emergency short-term measure to cool the planet and to buy us time to do all the other things that we need to do, transforming our entire set of living arrangements, transforming the very mode of production of our global economy from an economy of hoarding and destruction to an economy of sharing and healing and regeneration. Transforming our politics from a hierarchical, billionaire-controlled political system to a much more egalitarian sociocracy, holacracy. There's different forms of direct democracy. And we're now practicing sociocracy in the vegan collective intelligence. The vegan and collective intelligence is perhaps the most advanced online collective intelligence that I know of, right? The one I talked about a bit earlier. We're now creating a really general block party planetary collective intelligence. It's got to start somewhere. It might as well start at a block party where everyone feels welcome, everyone is welcome, all conversations are valid, and let's get it on. Let's organize ourselves and figure this thing out, right? Figure this collective intelligence thing out, right? I've been working on it nonstop for the past 6 years now. And, I've come up with a few cool things. Other people have come up with a bunch of cool stuff. We're now starting to come together so that we can figure this out together, right? How are we going to do collective intelligence? How are we going to get to 1 million conversations happening in parallel? With what platform? With what technologies? How do we build it? How do we make it free and easy for everyone to use, right? So that's what we're going to be taking on, a lot of us, kind of the collective intelligence, the participating collective intelligence community in the block party. So there'll be like a collective intelligence channel in the block party, right? Where we get together and talk about all this, talk about what kind of platform we're going to need to build. And then we might have a hackathon weekend or 2 or 3 to get the thing built, right? But for starters, we're just using Zoom video conferencing. It works great. Let's use it. Let's build off of that. So we're starting with the tools that we have right here, right now, and building from there.
I feel like once we have the structure of the million lane highway switching feature in place,
Yeah.
that will be like the core technology that will kind of like hold humanity together if things start falling apart quickly, because people can use it for just such a wide variety of things. Like, let's say there's an energy problem in some South American country,
Yeah.
and people are trying to figure out, like, okay, how do we grow food, like just like basic stuff like that. Where can we find water and things like that? And then so their use of the collective intelligence technology is going to just be to connect with other people who can walk them through and teach them. And so this technology will allow the world to kind of nurture itself through this hardship. And then there will be parts of the world that will be better fortified for whatever falls apart. So, and then those parts of the world, they will still have the tools that we have nowadays. But I feel like we'll just be able to allocate resources. So, okay, the people who, they don't have to worry about food and water, they can worry about SRM. So while there's a large part of the world that isn't implicating SRM, they're just trying to stay alive. But there's this other part of the world that's trying to make sure that the whole world stays alive. And that's kind of just the natural hierarchy that like comes out of this, where we're more privileged. We might be set up with more food, who knows, but we might also be the ones who need to figure out how to garden. And there's other people who are really set up with food and they got tons of boats and stuff like that. And they might be the ones who are rolling out SRM. It's kind of, yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, one of the things that's really interesting too is that, and I don't know if you know about this model, Jamin. It's called the hive/swarm model. Have you heard of that? Yeah, that's what that makes me think of, which is why I am really adamant about doing organizing and community work, because I feel like even though my community is dispersed throughout the city, like I can't just walk to go hang out with people, you know, at least I feel like I'm connected with I guess what they're starting to call is node points, right? Where there are people located throughout the city that understand all of these things, right? And so if certain pieces fall apart, these people hold particular pieces of information that they're easily connected within their specific community and can get information dispersed to other people fastly, right? Because they're connected. There's like, I think it's something like 20 or 30 people. It's also something that I think the city is like looking into. I think they've already tackled natural disasters where there's a regional group of folks that are also like trained to do that as well, where they can literally know where to connect up, know who to contact, know what to do in an emergency situation and how. But who says that all that's going to work when stuff falls apart? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I think that is going to be really critical, which is why this format seems really interesting to me, especially if they're like, if the block party is actually able to garner participation from people from all over the world, not only the United States, that to me is like imperative, right? Where being able to connect and understand information that's happening like in Venezuela or you know, wherever, is going to be really important. Yeah. You guys, it's almost 1:30. I got to get going. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Thank you so much for being here,
Yeah, thank
Carol.
you.
This has been super awesome.
So
Thank you.
awesome that you joined us, Carol, and I hope you will join on a regular basis because it's so great to hear your
Yeah,
voice.
I'll come back.
Yay!
I'm coming back.
Love you, honey.
All right.
It's nice
This-
meeting you.
great to
Nice
great to
meeting
see you,
you.
Carol. All right.
Great conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
See you soon.
Bye.
See ya. Awesome.
Wow, amazing conversation. I mean, you know, and what's really interesting, it's like, you know, collapse is now on, you know, it's in conversation. People are talking about it. And we were talking earlier about how the current system, I'm just going to call it the system, you know, to represent the current system of global politics, economics, banking, media, etc. The current system, and we also have other food over here. Yeah, and we can take a lunch break at some point, or just feel free to just dive in, etc.
I'll do some bananas.
Anyway, this is all fair game. Is so any system seeks to, you know, survive and grow and expand and all that. That's just the nature of systems, of human systems anyway. And so what we're seeing, like, you know, Donald Trump kind of represents the last gasps of a system trying to stay alive, right? A global financial system, capitalist system, you know, billionaire democracy, etc., trying to keep itself afloat. And so it feels like, you know, so if that's the Titanic, let's call the current system the sinking Titanic, right? But the captain's still trying to bark out orders. The, you know, the band conductor is saying, just keep playing, you know, and everything will be fine. Other people are moving around the furniture on the deck. Meanwhile, we're creating this big lifeboat that can hold everyone. And we're saying, you know, come to the lifeboat, right? If we're going to make it as a species and as complex life, not just speaking for humanity, but speaking for all of complex life. Hey, complex life, I'm speaking to all of you right now. If we're going to make it, the way to make it, the way to survive and to thrive, is to come together in a decentralized, non-hierarchical, planetary collective intelligence. And that's what we're starting with the Block Party. In fact, our latest revelation is that the Block Party is not centered around anyone, anything, any one place, any one website, or anything else. It's just everybody knows that from 6 a.m. Pacific time on Friday to 6 a.m. Pacific time on Saturday, the world holds Block Party events. Different websites, different conference rooms, different physical locations, etc. And so it creates this distributed network of block parties, all centered around the same general theme, which is saving life on Earth, right? And then more long-term, let's say that we succeed in saving life on Earth. Well, as a California political campaign said in the 1980s, because Californians want to thrive, not just survive, right? Well, our first imperative is to survive. And then once we've survived, let's say we cross that hurdle, you know, we don't want to just keep surviving and, you know, suffering. We want to get to a place where, I don't think thrive is necessarily the right word, maybe thrive in a biological sense, but we want to get to a utopian state where humanity has evolved to become the caretaker species, caring for all species and ecosystems and caring for each other, right? And the only way I can envision that happening is if we get way more collective in our modality of being, way more sharing, way more communal, and that we become like an ant colony that's going around providing all these amazing ecosystem services to myriad ecosystems and life supporting systems throughout the world. And that we get highly organized and use technology appropriately, right? Not that there's a techno fix for everything. So many of our solutions that we need to come up with are cultural, spiritual, communal, changing our culture, transforming our story. Who are we? Why are we here? So anyway, those are some big picture thoughts as to how I envision this whole thing coming together.
I would just like to comment on, because I liked what you were talking about, how there's this like the system, and I think what strikes me about the system is how kind of like discordant and not very systematic it actually is at addressing like what it is to be alive in the first place. So like in the instance of the global system, there is a system that is separate from life to support life, rather than the system that supports life also be life itself. So whereas the bees in a bee colony, the system they go about to support themselves is their life. Like that is what they do. That is their dance and their joy and that is their calling. And our calling is like very discordant. So where we do things within the system that does not support the life within us and doesn't honor our spirit and the part of us that loves life to support life. Like we haven't recognized that the process of supporting life is life. And we should take joy out of that. So I think that this is us kind of coming in alignment, realizing the system of taking care of ourselves can be a joyous one. Like it can be enjoyable to plant food, to raise children, to like labor and things like that. It's not, yeah, it's like we kind of like, we bifurcated life into good things and bad things, the bad things being work to support life and the good things being when we don't have to work or something. And I think now we're kind of reuniting these ideas to where work and play are interchangeable. Yeah. Also, I just wanted to say that I think this block party coincides very nicely with Greta Thunberg's Fridays for Future Change.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really promising, because I think young people have already started their own sort of subculture of on Fridays taking time to just pay attention to the world and the state of the world. And if this could somehow encompass them and then their parents, so it becomes a culturally normal thing to where on Fridays we gather, maybe we have like some beers and some wine and food, and as a community of friends, we just talk about the prospect of the end of the world, or we just talk about things like that. And so some people will maybe join the block party, and so we have these like separate dinner parties, these events.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's what you were thinking.
And that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, and they can be separate. There can be separate video conferences happening with different themes. One video conference can be like, let's just talk about it. Let's talk about the state of the world. Let's get it out, and people who are wanting to be in that conversation can be in that conversation. Others, people like me who are just hardcore about SRM, we got to cool the planet. Let's figure that whole thing out, right? There can be a general SRM meeting. And then that can be linked to a dozen other SRM meetings that work on different facets of it. The core science, the engineering, the politics, the economics, the finance, the culture, the media, et cetera, right? And so on and so on. Some can be physical block parties. Mm-hmm. Even if there's no internet access, just do it, right? We'll all be in communion somehow. And then a dinner party might have a computer on the right side of the room that everyone can be seen on the computer. And it's connected to one of myriad video conferences. So it's this network of video conferences that's sort of the glue, this real-time glue right? That keeps us all connected in real time. And again, there will be certain like social butterflies, certain sort of like diplomats who hop from meeting to meeting and, you know, share with people what's going on and what they're.
Looks like Melissa.
Oh, go ahead, sweetheart.
I just had an idea. Maybe for the launch of the block party, we could book Blue School's main space and actually have a online, you know, have a dinner there or lunch and invite friends and neighbors to come, and then actually do the recording from there because it's a big space, and launch it that way. And I could ask Karin if that would be okay, and the other Blue School artists. I'm sure it would be. And I just also wanted just to come back to what Evan was saying, which was really beautiful, Evan, as always. I feel what happened was with probably the advancement of the Industrial Revolution and the modern movement, when we decided that houses were machines to live in, etc., a la Le Corbusier, we lost our connection to the sacred. And the sacred's always been here, but we somehow forgot about it. And I'm not saying everybody, because of course, First Nations people and other indigenous peoples, and even within my own experience of local Ibicenco peoples, that's an island in Spain on the East Coast, and people who, Mexican friends as well, have kept a very strong connection to the sacred, to the land, to tending the land, to the animals and the insects that they understand we have an intricate connection with, or an intimate relationship with, that we all are part of the web of life, as Chief Self said. And so really it's coming back into the alignment of understanding the sacred and our connection to the web, and working within the web and the web, pun intended. And also just moving on to the work, Jamin, that you've been talking about, Block Party and collective intelligence. The hopeful thing with it is that all of us, you, who are working on this, including all the vegans, are compassionate souls and are working from very much this old new way. And so the platform will reflect that. It's not going to be a platform for creating nuclear bombs or, you know, it's going to be a compassionate solutionaries platform. And it can only be that because that's what the founders are intending into it. So I just wanted to add that. Over and out.
Beautiful. You know, my feeling about this is like, you know, at different points in history, someone has had an idea. It's just like the first time anyone has had that idea, and it's destined to grow to become this really big thing, right? You know, whether it's reusable food containers or cell phones or guitars or, you know, something that's just destined to become this big thing. And we are starting it like most ideas start, in a very kind of sort of random, you know, under-resourced, understaffed, right, misunderstood way, right? And we're just, but it feels to me very, very clearly that we have the critical mass that we need to give this a start. And we just start. And we do it. And we keep showing up every Friday. Every Friday. There's this 24-hour block party that's happening, right? And more and more people will come and dip their toe in the water and give it a try. and then they'll go share their experiences with other people, and then they'll come back, and then now they've got a friend or two who they've brought. I mean, look, either this thing is going to grow, or it's going to be, right? No one was interested. Well, what is this thing? This thing is humanity coming together in conversation, in multiple parallel conversations, a network of conversations, if you will, where the connective tissue includes recording, broadcasting, transcribing, translating, indexing, search, etc., and all these other cool features that we're talking about, right?
Well, collective intelligence is definitely in the air. I mean, of course, we're one of a number of many groups involved in collective intelligence research and design. So it's in the air. And it seems to be the next step in our evolution. Because we've tried it the other way and it's worked for a while, and now it's not working any longer. So, you know, we are evolving. We always evolve. And we'll continue. The universe always is growing and changing. It's constant. And anything that stops moving is dead, right? So energy systems are always moving. Everything's always moving. So I think the critical issue is not what it is, because what it is seems good and viable. It's how to connect all the disparate elements together, how to connect all the collective intelligence groups together and beyond. Like, how do we all come together? How does this happen? How do we launch that? And then I say we just start. You know, you start one party at a time. You make the party so attractive and fun that everyone wants to be part of your party, right? If it's a boring party, they don't turn up. So serve great food, have great music, get a belly dancer and a belly boy dancer, you know? Here you go, Evan. Make the party fun and people will show up. You guys, I have to go grab something to eat because I'm on empty. So I'm going to check out, and if you're still, I'll check back in when I get back. And if you're still going, I'll join you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll probably take a break at some point because at 3 o'clock we start with the vegan meeting.
Yeah, I will join you for that.
Okay, beautiful.
All right. Love you guys.
Love you, sweetheart. See you soon.
See ya.
See ya.
See you soon, sweetie. All righty. Well, it's just us now. We're still recording. Let me just, that was interesting and profound what Melissa said about, you know, make it fun, have a belly dancer, music, all that sort of thing. Since this is what we're kicking off is primarily a video conference, it seems to me one of the things that's really unique about it is the very fact of it itself, that there is a 24-hour event. That's a lot of hours for an event. And that it's on video conference and that anyone, anywhere in the world can click and join, right? So it's this world meeting, right? Which, you know, you can look at it as glass half empty or glass half full. You can say, oh, a few people are getting together on a video conference and calling it a world meeting. Right? It's total bullshit. Or you can look at it like, whoa, this is the beginning of something that is destined to grow and become this major planetary force, this new way of humanity coming together. I mean, this could literally be the beginning of a new world form of governance, a planetary sociocracy, where people download the app on their phone and then it's just like direct voting. Anything that's put up there for vote, anyone can vote on. I don't care where you are. The issue for vote could be a new wastewater treatment plant for the city of Seattle, and somebody in Madagascar could be voting on it. Why not? Now, the city of Seattle may only choose to listen to people within the city of Seattle above a certain age, that they're voting, that they're registered, et cetera, hey, you can listen to whoever you want. You can filter out, filter in whoever you want. But the idea of direct democracy is a very powerful one. What I'm suggesting is that this network of conversations. Do you guys want to sit down, by the way? Take a little.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, let's do it. There's your office chair. Okay. Welcome, everyone.
Oh, you can sit at the table?
Oh, you can just slide the table. Slide the table so you can get closer, however you want. Yeah. Oh, okay, this is nice. Okay, come on in, Evan, so we can see you. All right. So, I mean, this network of conversations with all these features that we're talking about, including, which are not going to be that hard to build, right? And, you know, in fact, my propensity is that we develop the party first and get everyone in who wants to participate in this conversation about collective intelligence before we design the big system. And therefore,
yeah. But we do need, I think we need, this is what I think Melissa was getting at, is we need some structure and something to attract people and hold their attention, I think, other than just essentially, well, this will be really awesome once it takes off.
Yeah.
That is, there's huge incentive there if you have the visionary capability for that. But we definitely need something in the meantime to, you know, so maybe, maybe what I'm getting at is let's talk to some folks and get them committed to hosting some conversation on the 14th.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, and we'll just have a little schedule that's gonna fill out a small fraction of the 24 hours. But then we'll just say this is a part of the 24 hours, you know, and everything out of this 3-hour block is unscripted, or some portion of it's going to be unscripted, a large portion of it in the beginning. So
yeah, even the unscripted portions, we could say, look, here's the general theme that we'll be covering for this 1 hour, and then the next hour is going to be this other theme or this other topic group or something like that.
Sure.
So we can definitely include some structure there. I think that's a good thing.
See, but I thought the key difference between the block party and the solutions club is it being more unstructured, like the social club used to be.
Yeah.
Because I think what would be interesting is just really encouraging people to have conversations on recorded video. That way, like this idea, so we're just not losing out on conversations that could be had. So let's say people, they don't want to be in this one block party at the beginning, or essentially, let's say you have 100 people at a party. It's going to be very hard to get everyone to stand in a circle and have one conversation. There's going to be a bunch of different conversations.
Yeah.
And some people might not ever join, like, if there's 100 people, there might not be one main conversation. There's just a bunch of conversations. But then there's like the most riveting conversation maybe at the party, and that might be a really small conversation. But what's most important is that people are having some sort of conversation. And so I think if we kind of make this a cultural change that isn't super technologically awkward, where you could literally have it be like, host a dinner party and then have like 8 to 10 of your friends, and you all sit around the table, and when you sit down to eat, you start recording, and you have like a group conversation, and that's like the intention that everyone sets when they come to this block party. Is we're having group conversation, and so we're trying not to fraction. We're trying to have like a collective intelligence conversation, like unknowingly, essentially. It's like just tricking people into communicating collectively and intelligently. And that's why I like Melissa's idea, is because it's just this idea of hosting a larger gathering, so that you can have a bunch of these little tables where people are talking about real things in real time. And then, because at a certain point, it's the data that those conversations provide that will lead to them. The data is what connects these people to other people on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even if we have a recorded conversation and then the next day someone from that data, they're able to connect you with someone else, and then the next day you have another conversation. But because I feel like we can't start in the format that it's gonna take when we have the rapid switching. Does that make sense?
Totally, yeah. Once we have rapid switching, that's going to change everything.
Yeah, the style will be completely different once rapid switching is all I'm trying to,
Yeah. And then the search capabilities that empower that rapid switching, be able to quickly discover any conversation and then just boom, just jump right in. Hey, it's me from Thailand, blah, blah, blah. Whoa, dude, welcome. We haven't had anyone from Thailand in this conversation yet, and we understand you guys eat a lot of cool vegan food over there. Oh yeah, it's all vegan. It's all rice and peanuts and whoa, I mean, it's just going to be, that's really going to be this sort of kumbaya of humanity really getting that we're all connected. Is the rapid switching is going to give us that.
But the basis for all of this is the recording.
Yeah.
And the data mining. I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why, like, if we're just starting with just telling people, like, record your conversations, like, please provide the data set, or I don't know, like, because just having a bunch of these conversations recorded, getting people used to the idea that what you say, you might say something smart. You don't want to lose that. You might say something that's really helpful. Yeah, because in the conversations, we're kind of mining for ideas and stuff. We're doing it unknowingly usually. But we're trying to figure out, like, what is this we're mining away at here. I feel like we're doing it now. We're trying to figure out, okay, what is this thing we have, this block party idea?
And so, this might seem oversimplistic, and it may be the wrong idea, but I have an idea, which is that we start the block party with just one room, and if 50 people show up, 50 people show up, right? I think that'd be impressive in its own right, right? And we start off by just talking about the big idea, just like we did today. We started off talking about the big idea. Here's the big idea, right? And Nolan, you made the comment that the more we talk about it, the better we're getting at synthesizing and just presenting a summary of the whole thing. I think that in the process of talking about it, we're going to get increasingly good at synthesizing, right? To the point that it's going to become this meme. Oh, the world is coming together through video conferencing, through a network of conversations, and you can jump from one to the other. And there's this little group on an island somewhere that's starting it, and it sure is fun hanging out with them and all that. But if we just start with like kind of this relentless focus on the idea, and then at different hours throughout the 24-hour period, maybe we focus on different facets. But maybe we also get into a rhythm where at the top of the hour, no matter what hour it is, we give like a quick 5 to 10 minute overview and introductions of whoever's there. And then we say, now for the rest of this hour, this is the topic that we've agreed to huddle around. Let's go. And also at the top of the hour, once we have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different meetings happening in parallel, we could also have a standard that at the top of the hour, we let people know about the other meetings that are out there and how to find out about them. Go to radish.org, click on calendar, it's all there, etc. But start with a relatively simple structure with simple rules, and we just kind of get humanity participating humanity, which will be a growing set of people, into this rhythm, this cadence of, oh yeah, I just show up when I can on Friday, and I just love showing up and just seeing this thing grow. Wow, now there's 50 people. Last week there were only 20. Right? So what do you guys think about that? Just starting out really simple like that.
I like it. And it makes me think of last night. I was at a Chinese New Year party, and I arrived just in time for the opening words said by the host. And he gave just a short, concise speech about kind of what this celebration is about. Talking about how it's the year of the rat, it's the year of sustainability and trying to be frugal. And just like he was like saying, I hope we keep that in our minds tonight. And then he was off, we were all off, we all went and started having all of our little conversations everywhere. But he planted the seed for this idea that cropped up throughout the night, where someone's like about to throw away their little plastic shot glass, and they're like, oh, hold on to that, you're the rat, and then like, oh yeah, then. So that's how I'm visualizing this, is that through these block parties, we open them, and rather than it being a formal, like, oh, what's the idea we're attacking today? It's just like a toast. It's like what are we celebrating today? What are we coming together to like really meditate on as a group?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of that's this way I'm simplifying.
Yeah. I like it because it's simple, right? The leader, whoever it is, or the moderator, the facilitator, doesn't just dominate like I do sometimes, but rather just takes 3 to 5 minutes and just gives an introduction, a toast, a flavor, a direction, a suggestion, and then everyone meets in their groups and does their thing. Now, in the case of the Zoom video conference, there's only one conversation happening at once in that one room. Sometimes people will start chatting and you'll get sort of a parallel conversation.
We can split off though into different rooms. And I think how it would work is if everyone was split off, and we'll have to try this. If everyone was split off and then another person joins, I think if you're a host or you're a co-host, you would get some kind of notification that someone else has joined. When they join, they go to the general room, which is where anybody that's not assigned to a room stays. And then the hosts and co-hosts can move people around different rooms. And they themselves can jump between rooms.
Yeah.
I don't know what the limit is on co-hosts and assigning those. But if a new person shows up, then the host or co-host could get that notification. They could come say, hey, welcome to, and then we're talking about these topics. These are the groups right now. Which one do you want to be a part of? And I'll,
It's like if you arrive late to a party, typically you want to go greet the host.
Yeah.
So you're going, you're greeting the host. They're telling you where the food is at, who's outside on the deck,
yeah, exactly,
and who's like.
And they might they might hold your hand, take you to the living room, and say, "Hey everyone, I want to introduce you to Evan. He just showed up. He's a buddy. Da da da. Evan, have at it. Everybody, well, hey, what's up, Evan? What's up? And then you just kind of find your way, whether to the ping pong table or to the pool group out in the back or whatever, right?
What could be interesting is so you have all these disparate conversations, and then when a new person enters, you can do kind of like a call, like I don't know, like a cow call, get everyone who isn't, it's just an invitation for everyone's attention. They can choose to be like, hey guys, let's put our conversation on pause. Let's go back to the main room. Someone just arrived. And then it's just a quick switch. People who are in a really deep conversation, they can choose to just be like, oh, we'll meet them later. But then people come back, you do the introduction. Hey, this is Evan. And kind of give just, like, I give a brief introduction, or you introduce me, what my interests are. And then the conversations that are already being had that have now come back can then invite you, be like, hey, would you like to join our conversation? We're currently talking about like sustainable living. And it's like, oh yeah, that's totally up my alley. And then I go join that conversation from there. And then we go back.
I like this idea. We're definitely gonna have to experiment with this splitting off, because I think this is a big thing that we're hitting at here. Is there can be like a homeroom, like in school we had a homeroom where we meet in the morning before classes started. They take attendance and do all that stuff, and then we go hop from room to room throughout the day. This can be like a homeroom. There'll always be someone there to welcome you and then tell you what's going on in the different rooms. And then maybe once an hour or something, we all come back to homeroom. Right?
Yeah, I like that idea.
We check in. So how's it going? Just a quick couple minute check in on each of the different rooms, right? Because that, I think, will really help people experience this kind of rapid switching thing that's more kind of curated and organized, like the host is kind of always on point, right? And keeping tabs of what's going on in the different rooms. Maybe they bounce around from room to room and check in and say hello, right?
Yeah. I think I know for me, I have to make the distinction. This isn't a party that I've ever been to. Like this is because there might be party-like rules that we're applying to this, but this is like if this were a live action in somebody's home party, this would be a very inclusive and progressive party where, like, when we all come back at the hour and then we share another drink, and then maybe people share something if they want to share something, like something that came out of conversation. Because I like what you were saying earlier about how we're trying to create this world where, like, sharing is the norm, but it's also like sharing. We have to share ourselves. We have to share the parts of ourselves that we're discovering, and so that we can make collective discoveries through each other. And so I think this idea of coming back in the hour, it also provides an opportunity to open it up to anyone else who wants to say something, to share. And it's not that different from what we've done in school, I know, where we would break up into groups, we would all have a topic to discuss, and then we come back as a group, and then one person or two people go up and they share about what we discovered through our discussion.
Yeah, and that sounds a lot like the World Cafe model, which is very successful, where, and this can be for any size group, literally hundreds of people, but they all come together for an initial, introduction, whatever, and then at the bell, everyone goes around to one of a whole number of different tables that are this size. We got these little card tables here. And there are 4 people per table, and there's a facilitator. There are certain people who are designated facilitators at each table, and then there's 3 other participants. But you go to this table, and for 20 minutes, you talk about the topic as this very small group, and the facilitator makes sure that everyone has a chance to speak and share what they want to share, that it doesn't get dominated. And at the end of 20 minutes, there's a bell, and everybody gets up, maybe except for the facilitator, and goes to a different table. And so every 20 minutes, you have a different combination of 4 people. And then at the end of, 2 hours or 2.5 hours of this kind of, shuffling around every 20 minutes, then everyone comes back together, and a synthesis is put together where an illustrator, a professional illustrator, gets up on the whiteboard, and as people are sharing their insights, the facilitator literally draws pictures and creates a big collage of the grand synthesis of what everyone, through all these multiple conversations, has collectively come up with.
Is this a real thing?
This is a real thing.
Wow.
And Ann Mitchell, who's one of the leaders on the Vegan Collective Intelligence, is actually an expert at World Cafe. She's facilitated
Wow.
a number of them, a bunch of them. And so she's highly skilled at facilitating that, so we can learn from her. So I think what there is to do is for us to really design this block party over the next 2 weeks, right? While in parallel communicating our general intention, like we'll publish these videos, up on the homepage, and we'll start a block party page, and this will be like at the top of that, and we'll say this is what we're creating here. This is the big idea, and this is where we're at now, and whether today or tomorrow or whenever we sit down and actually figure this out, start playing with the breakout room feature in Zoom and experiment with jumping around. We have 3 different computers, we're 3 different people, we play around with it, see if it works, hit up some other people, ask them to join us for the experimentation, and let's get a whole calendar of such experimentations and planning sessions and publish that as soon as possible, so that other people can start to participate with us in this whole block party revolution. In 1775, it was the Tea Party. In 2020, it's the block party. Right?
The message is still the same. Join the party.
Join the party.
That's what I love about this, is how welcoming it sounds.
Yeah.
That can be the calling card, is just join the party.
Join the party. Join the party. And who knows, the block party may become a political party. Why not? No, seriously, the block party. Because it's, humanity just showing up as you are, where everyone is welcome, everyone is wanted, everyone is needed, because we all need to come together ultimately. And so we're starting this radically simple new philosophy of coming together in radically simple and yet at the same time complex ways. The complexity is with the lane changing and the search and the subscription and broadcasting and all these features. Hey, I want to start a conversation. Hello, world. I want to start a conversation about this. And it's never happened before. Anyone interested? Boom. And it's out there. And I might just put it out there and then continue participating in somebody else's conversation. And then I get notifications. Hey, this guy named Evan Strait who you never met wants to join. Hey, this gal named Lucy wants to join. Okay, great. Right? And when there's a critical mass, I say, okay, hey, it's been fun, everybody. I'm going to go start this thing that I promised to start, because there's now 10 people waiting saying they want in. And let me know when it starts. And then I start it. And then all those 10 people get immediate notifications that it's started. One may be busy washing dishes and taking care of their kid, and they can't join until 20 minutes later. Fine. Other people go, oh shit, it's starting. I'm in. Hey, what's up? Saw your message. I don't know you, but I know of you because I saw some of your stuff. Social networking like features that allow Jamin to have a page where, every conversation he's been on is there, so people can see, who is this Jamin? I know he wants to start this interesting conversation. I like the idea of the conversation, but who is this guy? Right?
And then we can have like an AI that can scan through you, and then so you on your profile, it can pick out your big arguments and your big points of interest and the ideas that kind of like dominate your data.
Yeah.
You can do that with groups now. So
you mean there's technology that can do that?
Yeah, IBM recently put out something that they could find a group consensus.
Wow.
From a bunch of different conversations.
Wow.
And they're using it for their corporate buddies, I guess.
Right. Totally. It's a corporate service. that you can pay money for and IBM
Yeah.
supports. Great. Let's use collective intelligence to continue to destroy the planet. So, no, that's so cool. And so you see how all these technologies are like freaking there.
Mhm.
We just need to be able to A, find them, and B, integrate them, right? And so what we're starting now is kind of just this very loose, simple soup starter. It's a stone soup starter that we're creating. You know, here's a pot, here's a stone, here's some water, here's some firewood, you know, welcome. And we just start, right? We're just starting to talk about this, to experience collective intelligence, to experience the block party, right? And we don't, you know, saddle ourselves with any other big obligations or constraints other than that. Look, we're going to do the best we can in the next couple of weeks preparing for this thing. And then we're just going to freaking get together and do it. And whoever shows up, shows up. And however we branch out from there is however we branch out from there. And it's all recorded and it's all broadcast. And it's simple, right? Henry Ford probably started with a go-kart with a steering system and no brake. And then he added a brake. And then he said, all right, how do I get this engine to power this thing? All right? He didn't start with the new 2020 Ford Excursion with all-wheel drive, suspension, satellite controlled, on-site, on-board, emergency service 24/7, screen in the back with 240 channels of satellite dish and this and that and 17 airbags, you know, one for your beep, you know, and you know, whoa. No, he started with a freaking go-kart. A bumpy, hard on your ass, squeaky, hard to steer, hard to do anything with go-kart. All right? So I say we start with the Henry Ford go-kart. That's our first block party. We're not trying to get ahead of ourselves. We're not trying to burn the midnight oil for 2 weeks in advance. We'll have plenty of midnight oil to burn that night, you know, Friday night, you know. And let's, you know, yes, there's certain features that we got to get worked out in the next 2 weeks. See, I love the fact that we're having this meeting on recording so that anyone who like hears about it, oh, I hear they're cooking up a block party. They can go and watch this and see that we're just like real people really trying to figure this out, right? And if anything, let's err on the side of going slow and simple and not over-promising, right? Hey, we're going to get together and we'll be hanging out on February 14th. I hope you can join us, right? Here's some of the stuff we're going to try to do before then. We'll see how far we get. And we may do some stuff that we're not even thinking about right now. And as you join us, right, for our planning meetings at the next social club, or maybe we'll have other meetings that we'll schedule aside from the social club, or solution club. Why not? Right? Other people can join and contribute their ideas. Hey, love everything you guys are talking about. Have you thought about this? No. Did you know about this app? No. Well, that's good to know. Right? And, you know, like one, you know, we've talked about the bifurcating of meetings and all that within Zoom. One really crucial thing I'd love to get set up somehow is like a wiki calendar where anyone can come along and post an event that they want to do for the block party for that 24-hour period. Whether it's a video conference, whether it's an in-person meeting at a cafe or at somebody's house or at a park or anything like that, right? And anyone can post whatever. It's wiki in the sense that, yeah, there can be wiki police who go through and make sure that no spam is getting uploaded, right? You know, voila.
It would also be cool to just provide like a space where people can start hosting parties, and then there's like proof that a party is happening, and there's participation occurring, even if they're not recording. You know, like if someone just wants to say, "Hey, we're not going to be recording this, but we are hosting like a block party just for our little cul-de-sac or something."
Sure.
And it's taking place here, and then maybe afterwards there's like maybe they do record some of it and then they post some of it. So like in the calendar, you can look back and see the highlights from that.
Totally. And also, just like when you go buy an item of packaged food at a grocery store, it'll have certain symbols on it. V for vegan, right? GF for gluten-free, non-GMO for non-GMO, etc. On the calendar, you'll be able to see, hey, we're going to be broadcasting. We're going to be recording. Or not, right? We're going to be bifurcating into different groups, or not. We're all going to stay together as one group, right?
Can I get your password for the hotspot?
Yeah. Let me just pause so I don't broadcast it to the world.
Party planning committee.
Okay, we took a little break to get some food together and all that, but here's where we're at. What we're creating here is the new operating system for getting humanity to come together and talk, meet, discuss, co-create, explore, debate, and bottom line, organize ourselves, to organize our affairs, to organize our activities, to be healing, life-enhancing, life-supporting, planet-cooling, ecosystem regenerating, etc. We're talking about the operating system for the planet and humanity and literally all species and ecosystems. This is the new operating system.
Isn't that cool?
And it starts with an idea. The idea is, hey, let's all get together and have a block party, and then expand it into an ongoing, never-ending block party with millions of conversations, millions of lanes.
Right.
It has to start somewhere, right? Henry Ford, I said he started with a go-kart. No, he didn't start with a go-kart. He started with an idea of a go-kart, and then he built a go-kart.
And then he used collective intelligence to build the car.
Exactly.
He didn't do it on his own.
That's right.
And he was masterful at bringing people together.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we need to become, masterful at bringing people together.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right, my friends.
All right. I'll pause recording. All righty. After another pause, we're going to wrap up because we've got another meeting to go to, but please keep coming back to radish.org to learn more about the block. The block party. That was like an omen. Okay.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everybody. And jump in. Sign up on radish.org to be a part of these conversations or to be on the mailing list, etc. Look forward to seeing you all. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.